Hello again, my friend. Welcome back to the Butterfly Code, where heart centered entrepreneurs create prosperity and happiness through transformation. I'm your host, Jille Bartolome, and today's episode is one that lives close to the surface for so many of us, even if we don't even realize it. Today, we're talking about happiness blocks and why feeling good can feel so hard. We spent the last two episodes breaking open the myths around happiness and anchoring into what science actually says. We talked about how happiness isn't a reward, it's a foundation. We explored the truth that it's not selfish to be happy, it's a powerful, courageous choice that creates ripples. But what happens when you want to feel good and you just can't? Today, we're exploring the surprising truth about why it can feel so hard to let happiness in and the subtle, sneaky ways we block our own joy, even when it's what we crave the most. More importantly, we're going to look at some ways you can guide yourself to break through your happiness blocks so you can feel the joy of your life more easily and more on purpose. If you've ever wondered why happiness feels fleeting, hard to hold on to, or even undeserved, this episode is for you. Let's start with this. We all say we want to be happy, but deep down, many of us don't actually feel safe being happy. Why? Because joy is vulnerable. Unlike stress, which is familiar and often socially validated, joy asks us to be fully present, and presence is risky. When we're fully here, there's more to lose. There's more to feel. Brené Brown's research showed that the most vulnerable emotion we can experience isn't fear or shame or even sadness. It's joy. Why? Because when joy arises, the brain often responds with foreboding. We brace for disappointment. We wait for the other shoe to drop. Have you ever had a moment where you felt everything's going right and immediately felt a wave of panic? Like, oh boy, this won't last, or I don't really deserve this, or something bad must be right around the corner. That's not weird. That's actually human. And it's also something we can shift. You see, the brain is a pattern recognition machine. If your past experiences have taught you that good things come with a price, or that you're only safe when you're scanning for danger, joy is going to feel unsafe. So we self-protect, and we overwork, and we numb. We judge our joy. We turn to self-criticism or anxiety because it feels more normal than peace. We all have a happiness set point, and we all have happiness blocks. A happiness block is anything, internal or external, that disrupts your ability to access or keep joy. Sometimes it's a brief, oh geez, I don't deserve to be happy unless I've earned it. Or if I relax, it'll all fall apart. Or I can't be happy while other people are suffering. Sometimes it's a habit, like chronic overthinking or emotional self-abandonment. And sometimes it's trauma or burnout or simply never having had the emotional modeling to show you what joy actually looks like. What matters is not whether you have them, because we all have them, but whether you know how to notice them, name them, and work with them. Dr. Gay Hendricks in The Big Leap describes something called the upper limit problem. That's the tendency to sabotage our own joy because we've hit a ceiling on how good we're allowed to feel. It sounds like this. This is too good to be true. What if the other shoe drops? It's a subconscious survival strategy. If you grew up in chaos, happiness can feel unsafe. If you've been taught to serve others before you serve yourself, joy can feel selfish. And if your nervous system is used to stress, peace can actually trigger discomfort. It's not because you're broken, it's because your system is trying to protect you from a perceived threat. And that threat is simply something that's unfamiliar. But here's the powerful truth. You were not born to stay in survival mode. You were designed to expand, to feel joy, to hold peace in your body without apology, and you know it. And yes, it takes practice, and it takes some unlearning, and it takes noticing what's actually getting in the way. See, your brain is hardwired to scan for danger more than it is for joy. That's called negativity bias, and it's an evolutionary trait designed to keep us alive, but not necessarily happy. Neuroscientist Rick Hansen puts it beautifully. The brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Add to that a dysregulated nervous system, maybe from trauma or stress or burnout, and then happiness feels even harder to access. You can't experience joy if your body doesn't feel safe enough to hold it. That's why nervous system regulation, mindfulness, and embodiment work are so critical to happiness. We don't just think our way into joy, we feel our way into safety. And from there, happiness becomes possible. So, what are the blocks that keep us from letting happiness in? Let's name some of the most common blocks I see in my clients, but also in the world in general and in myself. So, the first one is perfectionism. That's the belief that happiness must be earned through flawlessness. This one's really sneaky. It tells us you can rest once everything is perfect. But perfection is a moving target. It's rooted in fear of being judged, of failing, of not being enough. Studies show that perfectionism is directly linked to anxiety and depression. Yet it's often rewarded by our system. We have to remember, happiness is not a reward for finally getting it right. It's a practice that begins with accepting ourselves exactly as we are. The second happiness block is productivity addiction. That's feeling valuable only when you're doing. This one is the most culturally reinforced block there is. In fact, it's often praised. But when your self-worth is tied to your output, happiness becomes conditional. You can't pause. You can't breathe. Neuroscience tells us that the brain needs rest, not just sleep, but mental space to process emotions, form memories, and experience joy. True happiness requires room, spaciousness, and if you're constantly chasing the next task, there's no space left for joy to land. The third one is over-identifying with struggle. This is when suffering kind of becomes part of your identity. For some of us, hardship is all we've ever known. We've built resilience there. We've found meaning there. But sometimes we get stuck in the belief that struggle is what makes us worthy or relatable or strong. Letting go of that can feel like letting go of who we are. But you're not abandoning your past when you choose joy. You're expanding your identity to include ease and pleasure and peace. You are rewriting your story. The fourth one is emotional suppression. This block starts in childhood. Maybe you were taught not to cry, not to burden others, to be strong. Over time, you learn to numb your pain. But the thing is, when you suppress one emotion, you suppress them all. You can't selectively numb. That means your capacity for joy shrinks too. Real happiness isn't about avoiding sadness. It's about allowing the full spectrum of your humanity. And you know, sometimes kids know better than we do. I remember a while back, a friend of mine's child fell down and hit his knee. And he stood up crying, and his dad said, "Come on now, you're tough, suck it up." And that kid looked his dad right in the face and said, "You suck it up, Dad." I think he knew what he was talking about. We can't stuff our emotions and be happy. The fifth one is scarcity mindset. Believing there's not enough joy or money or love to go around. Scarcity tells us that if someone else has it, there's less for us. This is rooted in fear, comparison, and a deep sense of unworthiness. But science says otherwise. Happiness isn't finite. In fact, positive emotion is contagious. Barbara Fredrickson's research on positivity shows that joy multiplies. It broadens our perspective, builds resilience, and deepens connections. So when we embrace abundance, we're not just helping ourselves, we're creating a ripple effect. The sixth block can be over-responsibility. Many heart-centered entrepreneurs are wired to carry. And what I mean by that is that we're wired to carry emotional loads, we manage relationships, we anticipate needs. And this is another one that starts in childhood, especially if we're praised for being the strong one or felt like we had to be a caretaker. But over time, this creates a pattern. I'm only worthy when I'm helping. The seventh one is hypervigilance. So this is for any of us with any trauma, capital T or lowercase t. Our nervous system are often scanning for danger. Happiness, peace, and contentment, those can feel foreign, even threatening. The nervous system might say, "You're letting your guard down. Don't do that." This doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means your system adapted to keep you safe. And part of creating happiness on purpose is gently teaching your body that it's safe to feel good again. And there are plenty more, but the last one we're going to talk about today is survivor's guilt. I saw this one a lot when my family and I went through Hurricane Katrina. It was all over our community. And it can really run deep. If others are struggling, how can I be happy? It can feel unjust to thrive when people we love are hurting or when others in the world are hurting. But joy is not a betrayal. It's a seed. And your joy can become the space for others to grow into. It's that ripple effect we talked about earlier. And if happiness feels like letting go, like being light and free, it might feel unearned, like you're letting someone down by not worrying. So let's bring some more science into it. Dr. Fredrickson's research on positive emotions show that joy, love, gratitude, and hope don't just feel good, they expand our cognitive abilities. Her broaden and build theory says that positive emotions literally broaden our awareness and help us build new skills and resources and social bonds. In other words, happiness makes us smarter, more creative, more resilient. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Studies on neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself, have shown that we can strengthen our capacity for joy through intentional practices. Just like lifting weights builds muscles, practicing gratitude, savoring good moments, and even imagining joy-filled experiences can build the neural pathways that support happiness. But the key is repetition and permission. You need to feel safe enough to let joy in. And you need to do it often enough that your brain starts to believe, this is who I am now. So no, you're not faking it, you're rewiring it. Here's something else I'd love to share. One of the biggest blocks to happiness is the idea that we have to figure this all out by ourselves. But human beings are wired for connection. Our happiness is relational, it's communal, and it's interwoven. The longest running study on happiness, a Harvard study that lasted 85 years, found that the strongest predictor of happiness and well-being wasn't money, it wasn't career success, and it wasn't health. It was the quality of our relationships. But relationships are hard to show up for when you're running on empty. That's why letting yourself feel good matters, because when you allow your own joy, you become more available, more present, and more connected. And that connection becomes part of your healing. So what do? We start by noticing without judgment. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. Then we gently disrupt the pattern. Here are some great coaching questions you can ask yourself. Where did I learn that joy isn't safe? Who benefits when I stay stuck and struggle? What would it feel like to allow a little more happiness in today? If happiness has felt far away or too fragile to trust, I want to offer you a few starting points. No pressure to be perfect, just gentle invitations. The first one is to practice savoring. When something feels good, pause, breathe, let it land, even for just 10 seconds. Savoring strengthens your joy muscles. The second is name the good. Start a 3 good things practice each night. Write down 3 things that went really well. Over time, this trains your brain to notice the positive as it's happening. The third one is to challenge the voice of foreboding. When your brain whispers, "Don't get too comfortable," reply with compassion. Say, "You know what? It's okay to feel good. I am safe." The fourth one is to let joy be small. Joy is the small things. Not every joyful moment has to be a huge firework display. A hot cup of coffee, deep breathing, a silly dance break, these count. This is why I go to Zumba. I love to dance. It brings me joy, and it's a small thing. So small rituals, tiny wins, celebrating progress, receiving pleasure, resting without guilt. These are not indulgences, they're recalibrations. You're showing your system that happiness is safe, that joy is not something to fear, but something to build capacity for. So the next time you find yourself stalling when it comes to bringing joy and happiness into your life, look at your excuse. And then develop a thought or statement that's the direct positive opposite of that and grab onto it. So let me explain. If I stop what I'm doing to relax, it'll all fall apart. So the direct positive opposite of that becomes, if I stop what I'm doing to relax, it will all come together. Or how about this one? I'm not worthy of happiness becomes, I am worthy of happiness. Give it a try and comment below on what you notice as you lift your blocks to happiness. So I'd like to leave you with this question. What if happiness isn't the thing you get once you've earned it, but the thing that's been waiting for you to allow it all along? This week, pay attention to the moments that feel joyful, light, and playful. Even if they're fleeting, let them stretch a little longer. Let yourself have them. And when that inner voice of fear or guilt shows up, just remind it kindly. I'm allowed to feel good. I'm safe. I'm becoming. I'd also like to leave you with this affirmation. I give myself permission to feel good. I'm safe to be happy. I'm worthy of joy. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend or colleague who might need permission to let happiness in. And don't forget to subscribe to the Butterfly Code so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to go deeper into this work, check out my courses, Happiness on Purpose and Prosperity on Purpose, at www.cplifeschool.com. It's where we do the real, grounded, transformational work of building joy from the inside out. Thank you for listening. And remember, you're not chasing a dream, you're becoming it.